Hello again. This is part 2 of the ongoing series, The Evolution of Evolution. We're going to be looking at a couple of philosophers from China and Rome this time, taking a look at their depictions and modifications to the concepts of evolution. We turn our attention far to the east of the Greek scholars we had previously discussed, to the 300s BC, where we find Zhengzhu. Master Zheng was a disciple of the Taoist philosophy, a philosophy that embraces the concept of balance in the universe and an energy that permeates all living things.
Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us.
The Tao translates as the way or the path. It is considered the same yet ever-changing. Also, Taoism focuses on a balance of nature. This is represented in the yin-yang symbol with light and dark, yin and yang, male, female, everything in balance. With this focus on the ability of things to change, a uniting energy, and a rise of everything from a natural order, it is no wonder that Taoism is one of the few philosophies that very easily accepts the concept of evolution. In the writings of Zhengzhu, in chapter 18, he mentions the idea that life forms have an ability or power to transform and adapt to their surroundings. This is not exactly natural selection per se, but the concept, the foundation of it, is established from a Chinese perspective here. In this chapter, Zhengzhu wrote that without taking any actions, the heavens are clear, and without taking any actions, the earth is stable. Since neither of them do anything, they conform to each other, and all living things transform naturally. What wasn't there before is suddenly there, and there's no sense of where it came from. And what's there suddenly vanishes, and it doesn't even leave an image behind. All living things become involved in all sorts of things, and they go on with what happens and keep developing without even being aware they're doing it. Zhengzhu also went on to write about the idea of life evolving from something so small we could not see it. In the translation I have, this is interpreted as the word amoeba, though I doubt that Zhengzhu actually understood what a cell was, considering the time that he lived. Still, the translation I have reads as follows. Where do all the various species come from? What started growing in the water became amoeba. What grew from that on the borders of the land became frog moss. As the frog moss grew to the top of the hills, it became snake grass, and the snake grass got densely compacted. It became the crow's foot plant. The roots of the crow's foot plant became the grubs who fed on its leaves, and turned into bearded butterflies. The central body of the bearded butterflies transformed and became a variety of insects that lived beneath the warm earth. As they evolved, their skin was shed from their bodies and became what is known as flying insects. After thousands of days, the flying insects became birds, which were said to look like hollow discarded bones. The foam that emerged from the hollow discarded bones turned into fine mist that filled the air. The fine mist that filled the air turned into a type of acrid food, and provided nourishment for the birth of other crawling creatures. As the stronger of these crawling creatures spread out, they gave birth to the 9 chief species of the four-legged creatures. As these creatures stomped over the fields, they left behind a type of fertilizer from which sprouted the sheep plant, which can be likened to the bamboo without its stalks. After a long time, bamboo grew in the vast green fields. The vast green fields provided the type of grain that spread over large areas and nourished horses, and after there were horses, human beings came into existence. People eventually returned to re-enter the wellspring of all life. All living creatures began from that wellspring, and they all enter back into it. While far from the most scientific description, in Zhengzhu we find that the theory of evolution can contain with it a certain poetic beauty of its own. We now return to Europe and the poet-philosopher Lucretius of the 1st century BC. Lucretius was an Epicurean philosopher. He relied on observations in order to draw his conclusions, which eventually culminated in his work De Rerum Natura, or On the Nature of Things, an epic poem in the style of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey that was devoted to breaking down the observations of the universe and nature as he saw them, a description so long it had to be divided into 6 books of its own. It is important to note that Lucretius supported the concept that species could modify. He did not, however, feel that species could change into other species. Terms that have commonly been misused today to represent those ideas are microevolution and macroevolution. In truth, there is only one form of evolution. The microevolution that most people agree to is the only evolution. Macroevolution is a misplaced term that merely refers to microevolution taking place over and over until so many small changes have made that they seem as if they are one large change. I would like to offer now excerpts from the 5th book of On the Nature of Things, where Lucretius writes, "Wherefore 'tis less a marvel if they sprang in long ago more many, and more big, matured in those days in the fresh young years of the earth and ether. First of all, the race of winged ones and party-colored birds, hatched out in the spring, left their eggs behind. Lapsing aeons change the nature of the whole wide world, and all things needs must take one status after another, or aught persists forever like itself. All things depart, nature she changeth all, compelleth all to transformation. And in the ages after monsters died, perforce there perished many a stock, unable by propagation to forge a progeny. For whatsoever creatures thou beholdst, breathing the breath of life, the same have been, even from their earliest age, preserved alive, by cunning, or by valor, or at least by speed of foot or wing." Our 3rd figure for this video will be Saint Augustine of Hippo, one of the early figures in the Christian religion. August 28th, the year 397. The Council of Carthage had met as to which books would be considered the Bible. Already, Augustine was challenging whether or not those books should be taken literally. Augustine was questioning things like the 6-day creation at this point early in the days of Christianity. He had put forth the idea that the 6 days were not literally 24-hour periods, but that instead each day represented a stage of the effort that was being put into the creation. The idea that he put forth was that God did create everything in the beginning, but rather than creating it all at once, what God had done was to create the potential, the ability to become what was desired, much as the idea of a seed growing into a tree, which was the metaphor that Augustine used. In this context, Augustine might find evolution a plausible concept, seeing the idea of life being created in something as small as even a single cell, the seed that would grow into the tree that life has become. And for those who debate against evolution on religious grounds, I will leave you with these words from St. Augustine. Even a non-Christian knows something about the earth, the heavens, and the other elements of the world, about the motion and orbit of the stars and even their size and relative positions, about the predictable eclipses of the sun and moon, the cycles of the years and the seasons, about the kinds of animals, shrubs, stones, and so forth. And this knowledge he holds to as being certain from reason and experience. Now it is a disgraceful and dangerous thing for an infidel to hear a Christian, presumably giving the meaning of Holy Scripture, talking nonsense on these topics, and we should take all means to prevent such an embarrassing situation in which people show up vast ignorance in a Christian and laugh it to scorn.